Some Gaetz allies criticized the ethics committee.
It's a report. It is not a court of law. I think it's vindictive in nature. I just don't see what the point in all this is. A couple of old timers are going to cackle about it.
He 17-year-old that he gave Molly to, like, grow up. Oh, you've never done that in your life? It's like cancel culture, am I right? We've had one political movement, a conservative project in this country, have spent the last 5 years, 6 years, accusing Democrats and liberals and progressives broadly of wanting to abuse children. They have singled out trans people particularly over the last 5 or 6 years and have aggressively made the case to the public that trans people pose a threat to kids. And then we find out that one of their party's rising stars, one of the most prominent Republican figures in Congress, all over Republican media channels, Fox News, TPUSA, the whole gamut, find out that his own colleagues investigated him and found sufficient evidence that he paid a junior in high school to take MDMA with him and have sex with him at an orgy. And knowing these allegations in advance, because these allegations are not new, Donald Trump nominated him to be the Attorney General of the United States. The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, tried to wield his influence to make sure that this report never came out. Are we going to see a single tweet from libs of TikTok about this? Let's just go to her page. Are we going to see a single tweet from Nancy Mace about this? Libs of TikTok is posting about a non-binary gingerbread man, gingerbread person, tweeting about Biden's death row commutations, tweeting about North Carolina, the hurricane, a registered sex offender in North Carolina, an illegal who burned a woman to death, something about Washington photography, public transportation. I'm not seeing anything about Gaetz. Maybe she hasn't, let's be charitable and say maybe she hadn't seen the news yet. One would think that someone like libs of TikTok, who is so concerned about children being protected in this country, would have some kind of opinion on Matt Gaetz. Maybe she just hasn't got around to it yet. What about Nancy Mace? I mean, she tweeted 500 times in a single day about trans bathrooms. Did she tweet about the Gaetz thing? Her last tweet was about transgender people in bathrooms. It was an hour ago. There's a tweet about transgender inmates. More about transgender inmates. It's just nothing but trans stuff. But this is on her personal account, so maybe she tweeted it from her official account. So let's check it out. Nope, I'm not seeing anything. We live in crazy town. This is craziness. Like when we talk about conservatives being graded on a curve, this is what we're talking about. This is what the we're talking about. What did Fox News have to say about it? I'm so curious how they're going to tackle this subject.
Breaking right now, the House Ethics Committee has just released its report on Matt Gaetz. Let's get to Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill. Hey, Chad.
Julie, good morning. It's a 37-page report, and the committee claims that there is, quote, substantial evidence that Gaetz violated House rules. The committee says Gaetz was involved in prostitution, statutory and the use of illicit drugs. Now, it says that Gaetz had sex with multiple women at a party in Florida in 2017 and paid them as prostitutes. The committee says that Gaetz also had sex with a then 17-year-old girl. The report says that victim received $400 from Gaetz. The committee says she did not tell Gaetz how old she was. She had just completed her junior year in high school. Now, Gaetz is suing to block the release of the report. His effort for an injunction says information in the report is, quote, false. It adds that the reputation of Gaetz, quote, would be immediate, severe, and irreversible. Some Gaetz allies criticized the ethics committee.
It's a report. It is not a court of law. I think it's vindictive in nature. I just don't see what the point in all this is. A couple of old timers are going to cackle about it. And again, it's not been
a 17-year-old that he gave Molly to, like, grow up. You know, are you a grown up? Oh, you've never done that in your life? It's like cancel culture, am I right?
Proven. This is just a report.
House Speaker Mike Johnson opposed releasing the report since Gaetz is no longer a member. The House twice rejected 2 Democratic motions to force the release of the report. Now, the feds cleared Gaetz of wrongdoing earlier this year. Gaetz admits to what he termed, quote, embarrassing behavior. Back to you.
Chad.
Hold on. Who said it was embarrassing?
To force the release of the report. Now, the feds cleared Gaetz of wrongdoing earlier this year. Gaetz admits to what he termed, quote, embarrassing behavior. Back to you.
They did not clear him of wrongdoing. They said that they didn't have sufficient evidence to bring a case to trial. There's a huge difference between the two things right there.
Lawmakers are home for the holidays, but one source tells NBC News that House Ethics Committee staffers will convene today. The panel was investigating sexual misconduct allegations.
That's such an unflattering picture of him. I mean, given the news today, that's like a very small potatoes, but whatever.
Against Gaetz that included that he paid for an underage girl for sex and solicited prostitutes. Gaetz has denied all wrongdoing, and we've just learned he is suing to try to block the report's release. On Wednesday, Gaetz preemptively rebutted the report, posting in part, quote, "In my single days, I often sent funds to women I dated, even some I never dated, but who asked. I dated several of these women for years. I never had sexual contact with someone under 18. He added, quote, "It's embarrassing, though not criminal, that I probably partied, womanized, drank, and smoked more than I should have earlier in life. I live a different life now."
All right, let's take a look at this ethics report. Introduction. On April 9th, 2021, the committee announced it was investigating a series of widely reported allegations relating to Representative Matt Gaetz. At the request of the Department of Justice, the committee deferred its review during the 117th Congress. After it was organized for the 118th Congress, the committee reauthorized its investigation into the allegations involving Representative Gaetz. Specifically, the committee undertook a review of allegations that inappropriate images or videos on the House, that Representative Gaetz may have engaged in sexual misconduct and or illicit drug use, shared inappropriate images or videos on the House floor, misused state identification records, converted campaign funds to personal use and or accepted a bribe, improper gratuity, or impermissible gift. In June 2024, following extensive fact-finding, the committee determined to continue its review of the allegations of sexual misconduct, illicit drug use, and acceptance of impermissible gifts, expanded its review to include allegations that Representative Gaetz may have dispensed special privileges and favors to individuals with whom he had a personal relationship and obstructed government investigations into his conduct. At that time, the committee determined to take no further action on the allegations relating to the House floor, state identification records, personal use of campaign funds, and acceptance of a bribe or gratuity. On November 14th, 2024, Representative Gaetz resigned from the House after the president-elect announced his intention to nominate Representative Gaetz for the position of United States Attorney General. As a result of Representative Gaetz's resignation, the committee lost jurisdiction to continue its investigation. Representative Gaetz subsequently withdrew from consideration for the position of Attorney General. At this time, he has not announced any intent to seek higher office or return to Congress. The committee has typically not released its findings after losing jurisdiction in a matter. However, there are a few prior instances where the committee has determined that it was in the public interest to release its findings even after a member's resignation from Congress. The committee does not do so lightly. In this instance, although several committee members objected, a majority of the members of the committee agreed that the committee's findings should be released to the public. In sum, the committee found substantial evidence of the following. From at least 2017 to 2020, Representative Gaetz regularly paid women for engaging in sexual activity with him. In 2017, Representative Gaetz engaged in sexual activity with a 17-year-old girl. During the period 2017 to 2019, Representative Gaetz used or possessed illegal drugs, including cocaine and ecstasy, on multiple occasions. Representative Gaetz accepted gifts, including transportation and lodging, in connection with a 2018 trip to the Bahamas in excess of permissible amounts. In 2018, Representative Gaetz arranged for his chief of staff to assist a woman with whom he engaged in sexual activity in obtaining a passport, falsely indicating to the U.S. Department of State that she was a constituent. Nice. Just some run-of-the-mill bribery and corruption. Representative Gaetz knowingly and willfully sought to impede and obstruct the committee's investigation of his conduct. Representative Gaetz has acted in a manner that reflects discreditably upon the House. Based on the above, the committee concluded there was substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz violated House rules, state and federal laws, and other standards of conduct prohibiting prostitution, statutory illicit drug use, acceptance of impermissible gifts, and provision of special favors and privileges, and obstruction of Congress. The committee did not find sufficient evidence to conclude that Representative Gaetz violated federal sex trafficking statute, although Representative Gaetz did cause the transportation of women across state lines for purposes of commercial sex. The committee did not find evidence that any of those women were under 18 at the time of travel, nor did the committee find sufficient evidence to conclude that the commercial sex acts were induced by force, fraud, or coercion. Representative Gaetz was uncooperative throughout the committee's review. He provided minimal documentation in response to the committee's requests. He also did not agree to a voluntary interview. On July 11, 2024, the committee issued a subpoena to Representative Gaetz for his testimony. He did not appear, despite having received notice of the date and time of the deposition. The committee then sent Representative Gaetz a set of written questions to which he issued a public response that ignored most of the direct questions about his misconduct and mischaracterized the committee's investigation and his participation up to that point. Despite Representative Gaetz's claim to the contrary, the committee's singular mission is to protect the integrity of the House. When faced with serious public allegations against a member, the committee will often investigate, and when such allegations are false, the committee has a shared goal with the respondent to disprove those allegations. While the committee considered whether to establish an investigative subcommittee to consider sanctions against Representative Gaetz, the committee ultimately determined that it would not risk the further victimization of the women involved in this matter. Most of the women with whom the committee spoke also gave statements to DOJ and urged the committee to rely on those statements in lieu of requiring them to relive their experience. They were particularly concerned with providing additional testimony about a sitting congressman in light of DOJ's lack of action on their prior testimony. DOJ refused to provide the relevant statements and other significant evidence to the committees. DOJ cited internal policies about protecting uncharged subjects like Representative Gaetz, general concerns about how DOJ's cooperation with the committee may deter other victims in other matters, various inapposite policies relating to congressional oversight of DOJ itself. The DOJ's initial deferral request and subsequent lack of cooperation with the committee's review caused significant delays in the investigation. Those delays were compounded by Representative Gaetz's obstructive efforts. The committee has determined that its finding must be released without further impediments. You know what just occurred to me, guys? This blows completely out of the water the notion that the DOJ under Biden was politicized. If the DOJ under Biden was politicized, if they had a political agenda, why would they not have completely cooperated with the ethics committee? Why would DOJ afford Matt Gaetz the benefit of the norms that exist within that institution to protect uncharged individuals? Why would they do that? If this was a DOJ that was rotten to its core, that was corrupt with political influence, why wouldn't they have just blown the lid off of Matt Gaetz and cooperated with a Republican-led House Ethics Committee? Doesn't make any sense. Conclusion. Based on the above, the committee determined there is substantial evidence that Representative Gaetz violated House rules and other standards of conduct prohibiting prostitution, statutory illicit drug use, impermissible gifts, special favors or privileges, and obstruction of Congress. Well, big question mark for me is how much coverage is this going to get in conservative media channels? Again, I just cannot stress enough. This is a political project. This is a political movement that is seemingly primarily driven in the culture war by grievances about quote unquote sexual degeneracy on the part of lefties, on the part of trans people, on the part of queer people broadly. This has been their primary grievance for the last 5 or 6 years. The libs of TikTokification of the discourse, where now it's just very normal and accepted that conservatives flippantly, regularly accuse left-wingers broadly, and specifically trans people, of abusing kids or wanting to mutilate and abuse kids. And here we have Matt Gaetz is just not he's not just some random congressman that no one's ever heard of. He is one of the faces of the Republican Party. He is prolific. He is omnipresent across all Republican media channels. He is one of the quote unquote stars of the Republican Party. Donald Trump tapped him to be the attorney general. Knowing these allegations, this bipartisan committee, which is led by a Republican, decided to break with precedent and release the findings of this report. And according to their investigation, there is ample evidence that this dude was doing illicit drugs, paying women for sex, not necessarily violating federal statutes when it comes to sex trafficking, because it has a very narrow definition involving coercion or force and these kinds of things. They found ample evidence that he had sex with a 17-year-old, found out that she was 17 years old at the time of their sexual encounter, and then or found out a month later, and then continued to have a sexual relationship with this person. And honestly, like, what I find to be worse, they found ample evidence of him engaging in what can only be described as blatant corruption, accepting private plane trips or plane rides, accepting an, according to them, what their evidence shows, an all expenses paid trip to the Bahamas, paid for by members of the medical marijuana industry that were ostensibly trying to curry favor from him. Just embodying all the corruption that Donald Trump regularly rails against when he talks about cleaning the swamp and this and that. He's just, you know, Matt Gaetz' own conduct represents exactly the kind of conduct that Republicans and conservatives accuse Democrats of doing every day. So how much is this going to get covered on Charlie Kirk, on Candace Owens, on Tim Pool, on Steven Crowder, on Ben Shapiro, and on and on and on and on? Is Libs of TikTok going to post about this? Nancy Mace has posted literally thousands of times about trans people using bathrooms in the last 3 weeks. Are we going to see a single post from her talking about this? It's just, you know, it's just another, this should dominate the news cycle for 1 or 2 weeks, bro. 1 or 2 weeks. If this was a Democrat, it would get 2 or 3 weeks of coverage. Okay. Because Democrats are quite literally graded on a curve. It just blows my mind. Blows my mind. Yeah, these are serious accusations. All the sex and salacious stuff, you know, that's bad, you know. I'm not going to say that that's great. It's bad, especially if he's using campaign funds, as alleged. He's using campaign funds to procure sex workers. Pretty bad. But the corruption stuff, I got to assume that was not the only gift he got, this trip to the Bahamas, you know? Or do we really think this was the only gift he got that he didn't report to Congress? How normal is this in congressional circles? Is this normal? Is this like, is everybody doing this? Like, crazy. This is not some random guy. This is a guy who gets up there and fully participates in culture war commentary about how, you know, unhappy lesbians are ruining culture and trans people are abusing kids. And he's out here getting 17-year-olds high on Molly and then having sex with them in a room full of other people. Hello, guys. Hello. Jesus Christ. He's going to be fine. He's going to start a new podcast. He's going to join like OAN, you know, or he's going to join some media conservative group. He's going to be handsomely paid for the rest of his life. We'll see if Florida presses any charges. The feds declined, but it's possible that Florida decides to pick up this case. Is Florida? Given these revelations, one question remains. Is Matt Gaetz going to jail? Here's what you need to know so far, including the disturbing details uncovered in the House Ethics Committee's report on the Florida politician. As of now, it remains unknown whether Matt Gaetz will face jail time or avoid punishment. However, it's clear that many on social media are calling for the blah, 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 blah. I mean, listen, it's possible. It's possible that the Florida law enforcement go after him. It's possible. We don't know. But man, what a scumbag this guy is, dude. Just get, like, especially, whatever. I've said everything I need to say. I mean, I just, people like him don't pay a price for this shit. And people like him just so flippantly accuse trans people of going after kids. It's just it's a part of their daily attack against trans people. And then all this shit comes out.